All right, everybody. As you know, we have this engine cover here on the top right here. This thing lifts off. Well, lifts off from back here. Lifts off and comes off. And then you can get to your engine to do whatever. But there was a front cover here, but it doesn't fit anymore. And we cut it all up because it was kind of rotten wood. But now we've added all this stuff and all this extra strengthening and everything in here. All these angled cross beams here. So basically nothing fits. So what we're doing, we're taking a piece of tarpaulin, see that, and we're putting it up here, and we are marking it so that it fits, and cutting out little pattern here, and we'll have the new front cover here. Notice that area there. Well, that's where the engine sucks air in for cooling, so that's why we're cutting that blue line there. We're going to cut that out, and that's going to open up that whole front end so the engine has plenty of airflow. And there's not a bottom. There's no bottom here. The piece of wood we're using is only 16 inches wide, and that's all I really want. I just want it that high. And how we're going to keep it on here, I don't know, but we're going to cut it to that size right now and basically lay this on our 16-inch piece of wood, draw it out and cut it, and then figure out how to mount it after that. So, and we'll notch this out right now too. So I'll notch that out, and then we'll put this pattern. And again, it's just a piece of blue tarpaulin, but it's easy to use. We was going to get cardboard, but we couldn't find cardboard that big, and we just cut it with these, so we get everything simple pattern making. So I'm going to cut that, and we'll be back with, over there's my 16-inch 3/8 inch plywood, marine, of course. So Paradise out for the front cover. And I'm going to set here too, so I want something blocking noise and heat from me, but I want airflow to suck between my legs and go back into there and run out the back with all the exhaust and everything. Basically, the airflow goes here and out the back, so that is the plan. Paradise. Alrighty, I think we got the front cover for the engine done. What we did, of course, you saw the pattern. We just outlined it here. We had to do a little trim work to get it to go in. We had to kind of angle these sides here. There's a little gap there, but because can't really take this off because you hit these things. So we had to shave a little bit off each side, so when we angle it, we can flip it and it comes right out. The problem is we don't know how to keep it here. How do you keep it here? We haven't figured that one out yet. But anyway, we're going to paint it. Well, first we're going to sand it, epoxy it, epoxy lacquer thinner it so it's waterproof. And then we will epoxy primer it, and then we will white enamel it like this. So we'll get trying to like a nice glossy. If you can see that gloss there, we got some gloss here. I don't know how long it's going to last because of the boat and people are jumping around and who knows what they're doing. But we'll start out with a nice shiny. We also cut this here so that we have airflow, because this is where the engine sucks air in. And down here, we left this open here too, because that's all cooling going through there. We want maximum cool for this engine, because the trips we're going to make are going to be sometimes, well, going home it's going to be 12 hours, maybe something like that. So anyway, if you want to view from the top, this is basically how the engine sits in here, like that. One of the guys pointed out a few minutes ago that this bar here, let me get this out, it's kind of in the way when you pull start, but actually I think I can pull start coming out this way, but it isn't in line really going straight up and down. But again, it's not going to be a major concern right now because this engine's coming out and the diesel's going in with electric start. And where it lines up, we don't know. So we will cross that bridge when we come to it. So for now, we're okay. We're good with it. See this here has this bar. See that? that bar there. We could, if this engine was going to stay in here, if we could move it back to like right here, because it doesn't matter where it's at. The engine will still come out. This is all open back here to pull the engine out if we need to. So this wouldn't really block it, and it would still set on here. There's nothing here. The board would be about right here, and we have plenty of room for the pull start to come straight up if we ever thought that was important. So anyway, we will be back with more making doors or whatever these things are, partitions, walls, covers, engine covers. There we go, engine covers. So we can go ahead and put that back down, honey. That covers it. You can also set on here. People set on these and drive. See, with this is again your steering arm here. It pushes the rudder back there, if you can see it. See that right there? Moving that. Let me zoom. I'm going to zoom in here, and you can really get the idea of how this works. I mean, I'm hitting my saber saw box, but you get the idea. So anyway, and of course those are my exhaust pipes looking badass coming out the side. And we will be back with more from my Paradise on Bentayton Island. Paradise. Hey y'all. As you saw before, we was at the boat, and I'm going to turn off this fan because it blows in the camera and makes wind noise. I need it though while I'm sanding. But as you saw in the video just before this, well, that's upside down, but we made a pattern out of a cheap piece of tarpaulin, and this is the cover for the front of the engine. So we made the pattern and we drew it on here, and then we cut all this out. This is for cooling, so the airflow goes into the engine because that's where the vents are to suck the air in. And if we just put this like this, it'd block it, and you need cooling. So anyway, this is all marine plywood, and just as a testament to how good marine plywood is, this stuff has been laying out, getting rained on, and all kinds of stuff. And it doesn't delaminate. It doesn't do nothing. I mean, it gets these funky stains on here. But other than that, and this is Santa Clara brand, by the way. You always want to get Santa Clara marine grade plywood. Don't go for any other brand. There are other brands, and they may be okay, but I know all the boat builders swear by Santa Clara brand marine plywood. So anyway, I got my sander here. I got 150 grit sandpaper on there, and I'm going to put on my mask, and I'm going to turn the fan back on, and I'm going to go to town sanding this thing. I'm going to round these edges off and stuff, make it all smooth and kind of as nice and pretty as I can. And then after that, we got we got epoxy primer we have to put on it right here. Epoxy primer. This is Island brand epoxy primer, and it's a two-part. You have to mix this with a catalyst. The catalyst is in a little smaller can right here. It's a ratio about 1 to 4. I'm guessing I'll have to read the milliliters on each can, but this is the hardener here. So it does time. So it is epoxy, and it does get hard in a certain amount of time, even though it's a primer, but that's what we're going to put on here. There's another step that I'm kind of skipping, and I don't know if I should or shouldn't, but you mix epoxy with lacquer thinner, and you mix it in a watery kind of consistency, and then you paint it on here, and that absorbs way into this wood and makes it super waterproof. I mean, you can throw it in the water and leave it there for a month, pull it out, wipe the surface off, and there's no water inside of it if you use that lacquer thinner and epoxy as the first step after sanding. So anyway, I'm not doing that to this one, or maybe I will. It depends on how my conscience starts to affect me. But right now, I got to sand this, and then I'll make a decision as to whether I want to take that step. But you just brush it on with the brush. And the epoxy, you brush it on with a brush too. I've got rollers here that I could use, but I don't think I will. I think I'll just brush it on because number one, I have to have a container to mix the primer in, or the lacquer thinner epoxy. You have to have like a plastic, like you cut the top half of one of these off and you use that, or a bucket like that if you want. But anyway, I gotta go to town, not the town, but I'm gonna go to work here on this, and we'll be back with more from my Paradise on Italian Island. Time to get busy sanding, folks. Paradise. All right, everybody, we got side one sanded, and as you can see, the edges are all rounded, smooth, 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 smooth as a baby's bottom. The corners are like that. I can't get in there. I could with a file or something, but that's not a big deal. I can just, when I paint it, I'll glob it in. It'll make a nice little curve there. But yeah, everything's nice and smooth, nice and rounded. Even some of the chips, like I said, this is marine plywood, and it was wet for months. There's a little strip of the wood that came off, but I just sanded down in that groove. But other than that, she looks good. And this is side two here. So we got some epoxy splatter, or actually this might be the, yeah, this is the epoxy with the lacquer thinner splatters on here from when we were doing something else. And we got some epoxy blobs here too that I need to chisel those off before I start the sanding, because that'll just tear up my sanding pad thing there, and then it won't work. Yeah, I gotta chisel that off or cut it off somehow. Okay, well, I'm gonna get busy getting these bumps off of here before I dive into sanding this side. And I did, from the other side, sand the edges, some of these edges round, but see, you can see I still need some cleanup here with these little burrs coming off there. So, and see right here, I can kind of sand these little missing teeth looking thing there. So anyway, I'm gonna get something and get these epoxy bumps off, and then I'll go to town sanding this, and then we'll be good to go to do step 2 in the Philippines, Cebuano, and maybe Tagalog, I don't know, but 2 is duha. And the only reason I know that is because when my wife and I order like Cokes or something, she'll say duha, because there's 2 of us, her and I. So that's how I learned the number 2. That's the only number I know. They do also use Spanish numbers too, but they have Cebuano and Tagalog numbers also. So it could be any of the 3 or 4. They can also use English. So you got 4 ways to say numbers here in the in the Visayas, where they speak Cebuano. Others, you got Ilocano and Waray and all kinds of languages that I think I have 168, 169 languages here. In the U.S., with the Native Americans, we have 298. So we even got more native languages than the Philippines does. Ha, ha, ha. So anyway, enough of that. I got to chip off some of this epoxy. So Paradise. Hey there, folks. This, I forgot to show you the sanding phase of this, but I sanded both sides of the epoxy primer. Like I said, I put it on really thick, and so I sanded it this morning with my little vibrating sander. And then I was going to paint it with enamel, or I was going to paint it with white epoxy primer, but epoxy primer dries flat in color, it doesn't shine, so I decided I can't do that. So I just left the gray epoxy primer on here, sanded it relatively smooth, and then I shot it with just some acrylic lacquer, quick drying spray paint, because the enamel, when I put it on thick, it takes 3 to 6 days to dry before I can flip it, and it won't stick to something and shoot the other side and paint the other side. I just roll it on with the enamel. I use a roller like that right there, little mini rollers. They work good. So anyway, I sprayed this one side. I put about 4 coats on it, nice good heavy coats, and I'll let it dry. Hopefully tomorrow it will be dry enough that I can flip it and paint the other side. And I don't know which side's the front and which side's the back. So normally I would do a better finish on the front side and not worry so much about the back, not put all that time and effort into the back that nobody's going to see. But I forgot which side is which on this one, and it's not exactly. I bet this is the front because this vent hole is more to the. Well, I could be wrong. See, the head comes out of one side, and so it pushes the engine over that away from the center, and so the center of the engine's more to the right, I think. So maybe this is the front or the outside, and the back is the inside. But either way, I went ahead and shot it pretty heavily with that acrylic lacquer spray paint, and we'll see what it does. And again, it's got a heavy coat of epoxy primer, so that waterproofs it really good. So we will be back with more. This is where I sand, and over here is where I paint. That's my paint spray booth here. So we will be back with more. Pizza boxes are great. Paradise. Hey everybody, we are painting, as you can see, side 2 of the engine cover. So anyway, this is, I think I may have showed you before, but maybe not. This is the sanding I did. I didn't sand it all the way down to where it was smooth, because then you sand all the way through some of this epoxy primer, and then you're back to wood, and you don't want any wood. So I just sanded it down, pretty much a little bit of texture there, and so anyway, I'm just shooting it with this acrylic lacquer. Hopefully that's good enough paint for this. And it seems to be good. The other side turned out nice and glossy and everything. And I put about 3 coats of regular slow motion. I'll show you how I spray. Pick this up. Ready? After I do this whole thing, then I do a crosshatch like this, and then my third stage is an angle like this, and then my fourth stage I just lay it on really thick and go real slow and just dump it on, and try not to make any kind of a mess. So that is my spraying technique for the engine cover. So we will be back with more. When this dries, we'll actually install it, and then you'll see what it's all about. So you actually have seen kind of the series, so you already know kind of what it's all about. But if not, if you missed it, or I didn't include it, you will know soon enough. Paradise out. Hey everybody, you've seen this little guy here, and what we're doing with it's the cover for the front of the engine, and I just notched it and well, let me explain. Originally, there wasn't this hole, this notch, this went straight up, sort of, maybe. But what we need to do is to be able to make this stay on here. So we've got latches like these here, stainless steel, of course. It's just a sliding bolt latch, that's all. And so we put this whole part here over on this part here, and of course over here too. So we got 2 of these. So these things slide and lock and keep this from falling off. And because they just slide, they're easy to take off and on. There's no bolts, no screws, no hooks, no anything other than that. So this is actually going to go. I hope I got the direction right. Do I? Maybe not. Let me flip it. See if it really goes the other way. Well, I don't know the front from the back on this one, because it looks pretty. No, this is the back here. So see, it's got the blue lines. That's where I marked it, was on the back. So that is the back. This is the front, and I may have to notch it a little bit more here. It looks like this is to go underneath that. Yeah, see, that's a little bit long. I can grind that off somehow. I got an angle grinder. I can just notch it. Yeah, this one fits fine, but I'm going to have to add a couple of washers to this, because you can see it's recessed, and when the bolt here slides in, it expects this surface to be level with this surface, and that's indented. So I'll put a couple of little washers behind the screws and push that out some. And this one here, I just got to shave a little tiny. I can either shave off here. I might as well shave off here. I'll just shave off right here. I'll just shave that about 1/8 of an inch off there, and it'll go in perfect. I'll have to repaint it and epoxy it, but that's no biggie. I'm using spray paint just because it dries so fast. That is where we are right now. You guys may be asking, well, where'd the engine go? Well, it's behind the engine door, or the engine cover, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, this is the top cover for the engine, and we made this one, but we cut out for the cooling holes for the engine here, and of course this bottom's open too because the engine sucks in air from everywhere, all over the sides. You see all those holes there, sucks it in. So yeah, so we want plenty of cooling and airflow coming from here, going through there and out the back, and the exhaust and everything's back there too. So this will kind of channel, kind of make a, hopefully it's like a jet stream. But the thing is that this door, even if we set this here, it would just rattle and fall off. Eventually it'll fly out or something, whatever. But anyway, so we're putting these latches on here so that we can take it off when we want to. When we start the engine, we have to take this off. And we don't have to take this one off, but we could if we wanted. I don't think we have to. I mean, if you wanted to pull up straight, but there's a board across here. There's like a wooden 1x1 going across here. And so we'll just take this off and then pull start it from here. So anyway, what we're doing, just putting these in, putting these little guys in. I already pre-drilled because we loaded this thing up with epoxy, but I cracked the epoxy there, so I'm gonna have to go back and re-slather it with some epoxy. I'll pull that screw out, maybe unscrew this whole thing and just re-slather it with some epoxy. So anyway, and the next thing I got to put on is this guy here. So I just stick this in here, basically slide over there, lock it down, get it in alignment, mark the holes, and screw them. I don't have to drill this because this is wood. The screws are self-starting in wood, so, but you can't self-start a screw in epoxy, or you might crack it, which I did crack it. Self-starting a screw too. So anyway.